Hey, what's up guys? It's Tremaine here. Thanks for being back on the channel. It's super awesome to have you guys back for another week of preparation. Now, today we're going to go into 6 different pairs, guys. One of them being the DXY. And I really want to just apologize for the length of this video, guys. In today's one, I want it to be just a little bit more detailed than I normally think I am. And the reason being is because I want you guys to actually go into or understand my thought processes and the real meat of how I'm trading. Because I'm looking at pairs. You'll see some pairs that are on my watch list that I'm not looking at, some pairs that I am looking at. And I guess it's also important to know why I would look at certain pairs and why I wouldn't look at certain pairs. You'll also get to see how I establish biases, also based off how other pairs are moving as well, because even the other pairs themselves, if there's some sort of a correlation, they give us information on where, for example, just the JPY on its own could be going based off the setups that we're seeing across multiple pairs. So let's go on to Aussie JPY, guys. On Aussie Yen, guys, structure looks quite similar, I guess just a different change because we deleted this resistance trend line up here and we really just wanted to look at the most recent price action to see what's cooking there. Obviously, paying attention to the fact that we are at a potential resistance area up here, we can see that we've extended that from those extreme highs up there. But nonetheless, looking at the corrective nature of this structure, we do see highs over here, highs obviously being violated to the upside and prices breaking back within structure, indicating that this is a corrective move to the upside. Prices are violating structural highs, but buyers are not able to keep structures above previous areas where sellers showed interest. So obviously showing us some buying momentum, but not decisive buying happening on Aussie JPY. So looking at the nature of the structure, guys, we do see a potential 3 touch. First touch there, second touch over here, and we are at the potential third touch of this market. Now looking at things from a higher time frame perspective and as well as looking at the momentum, we do see a lot of selling momentum coming out of there. And ever since we have created these extreme lows here, we've been playing within these extreme highs and these extreme lows, obviously creating a corrective structure, pushing prices to the upside. So just nature of the market, guys, we expect impulse correction, potential impulse to the downside. So whether or not AUDJPY actually violates our structural highs in these areas over here and maybe even create new highs, I'm still going to be bearish bias, obviously expecting some sort of a manipulation above structure and then structure to kind of give us a bearish looking structure for us to be able to trade, because we are at resistance, guys. I wouldn't be looking to buy at a potential resistance. And as well as looking at the past, how we've seen a lot of sellers just jumping into AUDJPY when prices were extreme highs and then those corrective pushes to the upside. There's definitely momentum to the downside, and if that momentum is going to come into play sometime in the near future, I want to be involved, because that's going to give me the opportunity to maximize on this winning trade. By being involved in the momentum, guys, we obviously get to targets a lot faster, and prices give us a lot more of those clearer continuation structures to be able to scale in and maximize on any long-term potential downside that a market might present to us. So on AUDJPY, guys, I'm just basically going to be waiting for a reversal structure. Remember, if markets impulse to an area where we're looking to be a seller, then we wait for all of these buyers that were showing a lot of interest to exit the market. How do we see that they've exited the market? By the formation of a reversal structure. Once the reversal structure forms and once we see breaks of structure to the downside, then we understand that these buyers have not been able to hold prices above levels of structure that the market has created, and we see prices breaking down and sellers being able to hold structure to the downside. So once we see something like that happening on AUDJPY, I'm definitely going to want to involve myself on the sell side of things. So that's all I'm looking for on AUDJPY, reversal structure within these areas here, and then some potential downside. Let's go on to NZDCAD. Now, amazing that I have AUDCAD and NZDCAD, because our biases are going to be a lot similar just because of the correlation with the CAD as the quote pair. But also these pairs move in their own unique ways, so they're going to require us to obviously approach them in or with slightly different kind of open-mindedness. Yeah, let's just put it that way. So on Aussie CAD, what we can see is extreme lows over there. Obviously prices have not violated those extreme lows, but we do see these lows over here being violated. They are equal lows. If we just look at the structure, we see a low there, we see another test of that area, and then we see a push to the upside, violating structural highs. So nice important equal lows that were violated to the downside, and prices have broken back within the structure. Once we see prices not able to hold structure well, we obviously expect some sort of a corrective structure or corrective price action nature. So looking at NZDCAD, we do see that we have, let's just zoom in a bit so that we can pay attention to the H4 and also look at the most recent price action. What we do see here on NZDCAD is obviously a market that has extreme lows down there, extreme highs up here, and then we've just seen these highs and lows just being manipulated to the upside, basically in some sort of a ranging manner or consolidation type of a thing. So we do know that our selling probabilities, if we look at the previous support structure that was broken in this potential downtrend, we do know that these are our next resistance areas. We can see that they were tested again there in the past. So quite an important resistance area to want to look for those selling probabilities to actually come into play. Now looking at where we are right now, we are at the lows of these or of this move to the downside at some potential support. So obviously we want to be looking to trade with the probabilities as well. So looking to be a buyer down low would make a lot more sense than looking to sell into this trade, because you would have to manage your position by the time we get to these extreme lows and these extreme lows down there. So if you were to be a seller at this point, you wouldn't have a lot of risk to reward ratio if you're swinging looking at some higher time frame momentum. Otherwise, if you were to be a buyer by the time prices came into this area, you would have a lot of risk to reward and I guess the probabilities as well, because the next resistance area that you understand is an important resistance area would be these areas here, and so you'd have to maybe partial out halfway through your position and then manage your full position by the time prices get there. So what I would be hoping for on NZDCAD, same as Aussie CAD guys, if prices do push lower, I'd be looking for an opportunity to actually jump into the market with a buying opportunity. So my buying probabilities are in play right now at this point if prices do pull lower. Otherwise guys, what I was saying to the guys in the live session is that we can expect prices to kind of create equal highs, take them out, create more equal highs, maybe convince sellers to jump in early and then take out those new equal highs, obviously generating the liquidity that's necessary for these markets to make some long-term downside. So what I will be looking for on NZDCAD, just opening my mind to where my probabilities are at. I really want to be a seller when prices actually pull into these areas here. I would hope that prices correct into these areas, because that would give me a lot more confidence on taking a risk entry, obviously being able to maximize on my rewards with a risk entry. So if prices do correct, if the nature of price action is corrective to the upside, then I would love that, because it would give me an opportunity to trade in the direction of some higher time frame momentum that we've seen come in long term over there. And also in the recent past, we've seen some sell side momentum that has been able to actually violate some lower structure on our left hand side. So a lot of selling interest, and I would love to trade in the direction of that selling interest, but my selling probabilities will be maximized when prices do get into these resistance areas, guys. So we always want to understand where we are in the market, where our probabilities are on both sides, decide whether we want to be a buyer or a seller based off the structure that we see, and then understand where our probabilities long term will come in, whether we decide to be a buyer or a seller. So I would love to be a buyer right now, but I understand where my buying probabilities will come in, and I also understand what it means for me, what the probabilities are of me trading within this range. So looking to obviously trade the bottom of the range for those buying opportunities and not the top of the range, even though I know that I can still buy this market until we get into these areas here. So looking to be a buyer down low on NZDCAD, and then looking to be a seller up high to join the higher time frame momentum that we do see coming in on our left hand side. Also the neckline of a potential crooked looking head and shoulder structure, but nonetheless we do see a support structure that has been tested not once but twice, prices breaking through, and then could be respected as resistance for some long-term downside continuation. So that's what I'd love to see in NZDCAD, guys. Let's go into the last pair that we're going to have a look at for today, and that's NZDJPY. So guys, on NZDJPY, very similar looking structure to I guess AUDJPY. Kind of, yeah, very similar setup, and I'd love to take NZDJPY, I guess, more than AUDJPY, just because NZDJPY still has some room to complete for a third touch. There's still a lot of room for prices to fake sell moves early, and then obviously grab that liquidity and then have the long-term nice selling momentum. So the structure looks a lot more clear to me on NZDJPY than it does on AUDJPY. So I'm going to be taking the setup that presents itself to me more clearly, or the setup that will give me the higher probabilities. Remember, AUDJPY, we said that prices still have to reverse. NZDJPY, prices can still play around and then give us a risk entry, guys, because they still have a lot more room to push to the upside. So what I would be looking for, guys, we're obviously just looking at structure quickly before we digress too far. We have extreme highs over there, prices not being able to break above those extreme highs, but obviously prices now coming in, testing those extreme highs again, still not breaking above those extreme highs, and prices playing again at those extreme highs. So we definitely see that prices want to generate as much liquidity up below those swing highs just to take it out in the near future. So I'm definitely expecting NZDJPY to kind of take that sell side liquidity out one more time. Once we get this one push to the upside above these previous swing highs here, that's where I'll be interested in beginning to look for my trend reversals. So I'll obviously be looking at my lower time frames to spot the reversal in trend, and then once I see something like that, obviously looking for bearish bias structure to form within these areas to actually give me a reason to sell this market regardless of how they form. I'm just going to be looking for bearish bias structure because we are at resistance, we are at higher time frame resistance where prices could even just manipulate to the upside, break back within structure, and then we see all of this long-term momentum that we've seen coming in there, followed by this corrective structure just following through to the downside. So I want to be involved in long-term higher time frame momentum, and we do see the potential for NZDJPY to make that push to the downside, obviously grabbing all of the liquidity below all of these equal lows that have been formed on this potential, on this trend, or on the way to the upside. So we know that when markets move and grab liquidity, especially a lot of liquidity like this, they move very fast. That's why we have these impulse corrections and impulse. The reasons why markets correct like this is to fill potential imbalances that might have been left behind by previous impulsive structures. So everything works out in the market. The market is always balancing itself. It always makes sense. It's always going to look for areas of balance, and if those areas of balance exist below these lows over here, obviously the market is going to want to move to the downside, and I want to be involved in that potential move. So looking at things from a higher time frame perspective, guys, a lot of drawings on NZDJPY. We have seen markets basically correcting to the upside. You can call this a trend, but looking at the most recent momentum that's been coming in right now, we do see a lot of sellers being interested at selling at these extreme high prices. So I want to be involved when these sellers decide that they want to sell NZDJPY as aggressively as we've seen them sell before. So looking for that reversal structure, guys, obviously looking for some downside, waiting for structures to obviously trend to the downside, giving me a reason to enter. My network disappeared, guys, but nonetheless, if prices do correct to the upside, then I will be interested in taking that risk entry. Though if prices do continue maybe to impulse to the upside, then I will be waiting for prices to actually reverse first, and then I'll be looking for a reduced risk entry. So nonetheless, looking for those selling opportunities on NZDJPY, hoping to trade the higher time frame momentum, guys. Now that is the end of the analysis. I hope that you guys first of all got value from this analysis. I hope that you guys have seen the concepts that I use, the ideas of correlation and the ideas of structure, looking at highs, looking at lows, looking at where we are within the structure, looking at where our probabilities are, understanding that if I want to be a buyer, where should I be looking for those probability buys, those high probability buys, and if I want to be a seller, where should I be looking for those high probability sells. And that's the kind of content that I would love to give to you guys. I want to give you guys something that you can use in the future, not something that's specific to just next week, like the next trading opportunity. That's not the reason of this analysis. The analysis is to show you guys the concepts that I use so that you can use them on your own on the different assets that you trade. Trading is subjective. All of these things that I'm saying, all the concepts that I'm using, you can use them in your own way that makes that makes you comfortable, that makes you feel more confident, and obviously that's also easy for you to understand. People understand different things on a different wavelength, and maybe trading trend lines will make a lot more sense to you, and you'll be able to identify trends a lot more easy. And maybe for someone else, spotting horizontal resistance and support might make a trend a lot more obvious for them. So the reason why we go over all of these different concepts and show you guys how they all say the exact same thing is so that you can pick out what works for you, what you feel comfortable, what's easy for your eyes to see, and then you work on your strengths. What's not working for you, what you're finding difficult, leave those behind and then focus on your strengths. So guys, I guess this is the end of the analysis. Let's not drag it too long. Hope you guys enjoyed the analysis. Obviously, drop a like if you have received some sort of value, and subscribe if you're here for the first time. Otherwise, if you're part of the family, part of the ones that return every week, thanks for being here. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the time that you take to spend watching these videos. Otherwise, guys, this is Tremaine. I'll see you guys in the future analysis. Take care. Consistency starts here. Consistency starts with the small things, guys. Enjoy the rest of your guys' trading week and have a profitable week.